Hey everyone, my name is Luke and welcome to my channel. I'm very happy and honoured, as a matter of fact, to be able to bring to you PixInsight users today something really special. I think that these are the best, without a doubt really, the best star reduction tools available on the market at all, anywhere. And they're available to you guys completely free of charge, no strings attached. They have been made by a very, very good friend of mine, Bill Blanchon. Basically in response to a request that I'd made about star reduction methods. He took it and ran with it, and this is the fruits of his labour, and he's making it available to everybody today through my channel very kindly. So stick around and let's dive straight into it, and we'll take you through the whole thing. Now I'm going to take you through the basic setup and installation of these tools, and also just show you one quick kind of processing run and let you know just about what you can expect, and hopefully get anybody who's interested in using these things up and running as quick as possible. Now, after that's done, I'm going to hand over to Bill, directly the creator of these tools, and a little bit of a pixel math wizard as it happens. And he's going to take you through the entire breakdown of the whole thing. He's going to basically put the thread through the needle and tell you how to use these tools to their absolute max. And I really would advise, if you have the time, to stick around and watch the whole thing and really learn how to use these things to the full potential, as what I'm about to show is going to be just a very basic surface level look into what these tools can do. Alright then guys, so without any ado whatsoever, let's get straight into this installation and early walkthrough of these tools. Now there is one prerequisite to be able to actually use these things, and that is that you need to have either StarNet installed or Star Exterminator if you're using the paid software. For the purposes of this tutorial, I'll be using Star Exterminator, but if you don't have that installed yet, either of those programs, you need to get that sorted first before we can continue with this. Now, assuming that you've already got it done like I have here, the next thing to do is just go to the video description box down below and you'll see a link to my Google Drive where I've hosted this file. So it's called Bill's Star Reduction Methods V2, and all you need to do is download that, open up your PixInsight, and then open up all your regular processing icons like you're getting ready to process an image basically. So as you can see over on the right hand side here, I've already got my icons open, so I can integrate these into it. So the next thing to actually get these installed is very simple. Just literally drag it and drop it from wherever you downloaded it onto the PixInsight desktop. You should see they'll appear in the top left of the main window here, so they should be visible for everybody. Drag them somewhere usable, and then if you want to integrate them into part of your actual main set of tools, you can right click, select all icons. That'll highlight all the icons that you use regularly. Right click process icons and save process icons. Just give that a name, hit save, and then each and every time you load up PixInsight from then on out, you can load all your process icons in one, like I do each time, and they'll be there waiting for you to actually begin using. Right then, so now that's installed and ready to go, you are actually at the point where you can go ahead and start to use these tools. They're integrated and ready to go. Now, there is one important point that I need to stress before we actually go ahead with using these, and that is the fact that once you've actually committed to starting to reduce the stars in your image, you decide it's time in processing that you want to do that particular task, it's important that you stay the course and kind of don't deviate for just a few moments. It shouldn't take longer than a minute or so really from start to finish to actually get this task finished. But if you alter either the starless image we're about to create, that'll be explained in a second, or the main image, it will have the effect of altering the underlying math expressions that these star reduction tools are going to use, and that will throw off the result like considerably. It's not something you want in your images. Nothing disastrous will happen if you do, it's just they won't function as intended. So it's highly recommended that when you decide it's time to do star reduction, just stick to that one task for the given moment, and then after you're finished, do whatever you want to do with your processing. So now that point's been made, let's go through the basic usage. So you can see you've got these four main tools. So you've got the star reduction methods 1, 2, and 3. They will each be properly explained by Bill. I'm just going to kind of gloss over it for a moment now, and you see we've got clone for starless. So I'm going to take the first one, clone for starless, and drag it over the image that you want to perform star reduction on. You can see it's going to make a clone, exactly the same as the main image, and it's just automatically named it starless for us. Now the next thing you need to do is either using StarNet or Star Exterminator, just drag and drop that onto this newly created clone. Okay, so hopefully that's finished now. Just skipped on a moment there for you guys, so you don't have to sit through waiting for that to finish there, and you should be left with a setup that looks something like this. So over on the left, in my case, I've got my main image that I want to perform star reduction on, and over on the right, we've got that cloned image that now has all the stars removed. So at this point, as I was stressing before, don't make any more alterations to either of these images until you're done with the star reduction tasks that you want to complete. Now you've got these three individual tools, and in their absolute most basic usage, it literally is as simple as dragging one of the tools onto the target image. So in this case, we're just going to try star reduction method 1, and as you can see, it's already finished and it's done a real nice job of reducing those stars. As simple as that. So if I just go back and forth a few times, you can hopefully see the effect that that's had right away. But let's say you decide, hey, maybe that's a little bit too strong, not giving the right result. You can go a little bit deeper, so you can open the tool. Just by double clicking it, that's going to open up the pixel math window where you can see that Bill has very kindly left some descriptors for you guys, so you can see exactly what you're going to be altering in this. Now you'll notice there's an S value, that's the red highlighted number right there, and lower S values are going to give you stronger results on this. So let's say if I said it wasn't quite strong enough, I could change this S value to 0.10, and that's going to make it even stronger. But also the inverse is true. So let's say I thought it was too strong and I want it to be considerably weaker, I might go 0.30, and then you can just, the same as before, just drag and drop it across, and there you can see we've got a much more subdued overall effect. Now that is just one of the tools in action there. There are three, so this is the halo method. Again, this will be all explained by Bill, the right reasons for using these tools in certain situations, and also version 3, so this is ever so slightly different. You'll notice it's got two different alterable values by the user. So we've got number 1 there, that's the amount of iterations. Most commonly you're going to use this one on just one iteration, but there are usage cases where you might want to increase that. And also you see the mode, it's got mode 1, 2 and 3, so that's as described rather here. 1 mode is strong, number 2 is moderate, and number 3, it gives soft reductions. Now it's all rather self-explanatory. You choose the mode you want by entering the correct value. Really simple, couldn't get any more simple actually. I don't think the usage of these things is a breeze. As you can see, let's say I just want to be in between 0.25, drag and drop, wait a moment, and all of a sudden there you go, the stars have been reduced in my image, and they have a very, very pleasant appearance. I'd say it looks a lot better to my eye than any attempts I've made before using like the easy star reduction or morphological transformations and such. I'm really pleased with it, and I genuinely think that you guys will be too. So I'm going to hand over to Bill in just a moment now, and he's going to take you through the intricacies as I mentioned. So if you really want to learn how to use these tools in the right scenarios, and also the reasoning behind why they are actually, we think, the right way to perform this particular task, then do stick around. I really would highly advise it. Bill's very kindly taken the time to put together this next segment of video for you guys, and for my benefit too. It's not like I understand all of this. But yeah, it's worth your time, I think. So we're going to leave that for there. I'm going to hand over to you, Bill.
Hey Luke, thanks again for having me on your channel, and I'm really glad that you reached out to me regarding ways to reduce stars in an image. And I've actually got 3 methods that I would like to share with you, and I will go over some of the math. I'm not going to get really in depth in it because I don't want to bore your viewers when it comes to the math, but I will discuss the primary principles behind what I'm doing, the pros and cons to each method, and why I actually use the software that I'm using right now to do this this method. As you know, I love PixInsight. I mean, we've been friends for a while now, and a lot of the work that I do is using pixel math. So one of the things that makes PixInsight software so powerful is the fact that it has pixel math. So for people who are not familiar with what that is pixel math is basically, I mean, it is what it is. I mean, you can actually take the numbers of a image and manipulate them by subtracting, adding, dividing, multiplying, or even logarithmic methods for, say, stretching and things like that. So one of the cool things about how PixInsight handles their images, as you can see, as I scroll over, you've got values, and these values actually range from 0 to 1. So it doesn't matter what camera you have, whether it's a 12-bit, 16-bit, when all this information comes in, it's turned into values between 0 and 1. So values that are really bright will be up close to the 1, and of course dark areas, they're lower. So one of the things that we will talk about is how I handle the math when it comes to an image that are between these 0 and 1 values. So the first thing is that I'd like to show you is why is pixel math so powerful? Well, for example, I can just drag this icon here and it actually created a file name for me called Starless, and then I can come over and then use StarNet 2 and it'll actually create the Starless image. So a lot of my workflow is actually using pixel math. You can actually produce an image from non-linear from linear to non-linear and process the whole image just using pixel math. So it's really, really cool once you get into it. And so here's some examples. So what I did here, that was just easy. This is what pixel math looks like. I just took the target image, which is $T, and I just dragged it over here, but I was able to create a new name. So normally, if you wanted to clone something, you just bring it over here and you double click on this and just name it. Well, that takes time. For me, I just come over and just do something like that. So this is just a quick, simple little process that you can do for yourself to create, just a little image. Now that I've actually created my reference image, and say I wanted to reduce the stars here, I can come over here, grab my method 1, so you can see the stars decrease. Or I can come over, grab method 2, same thing. Or even method 3. All methods have their pros and cons, and I will go through them more thoroughly through this video, but I just kind of wanted to show you how these processes work, and I want to share them with you so that you can share them with your viewers, get their insight. But it's actually very important that I really wanted to create something that other people can use. One of the things, there's plenty of other alternative methods. I actually don't like any of the alternative methods, and it's not a knock against some of the well-known people who have done it. The stuff that the easy processing suite, the way they're doing it, they do a really good job, but the star reduction will leave artifacts. I've never liked it. And again, I'm not going to bring in other people's names because I actually admire a lot of these people who do this, but I wanted to share a different way of doing it and explain why I'm doing it the way I am. So to show you how star reduction works, I want to go over a few simple things with pixel math to give you an idea of what it is that I'm doing. So I've seen people online actually just take the difference between this image and this image. In fact, if you're using like StarNet 2, you can actually create like a star mask, and all that is just taking the difference between both images. So for example, if I go $T minus starless, and I just bring this over, you can see that this is just the difference between this and this. And then I've seen guys do like curve stretches just to reduce this down, and then they add it back to this. But there's a problem. So if you look at this star, for example, when you subtract this image from this image, you're left with these colors here, and the values are around 0.5, 0.2. So a lot of information is actually not here on the stars because it's left on this image. So any slight changes here is going to dramatically bring these numbers down. So when you add them back, all the scaling is off, and it's just not the right way you do it. So that's how that formula right there works, which is identical to this right here. Now, what you really want to do is you actually want to work on the top half of the data versus the bottom half. This is like bottom half. So let me open up an Excel spreadsheet and I'll show you. So here's a cross-sectional view of a star. Now this is just one color, and when you apply like a starless routine, it subtracts a star. Sometimes you might have a little artifact here, but that's okay. So you don't have a star here anymore. Now, if you subtract the star from the starless, you can see that we went from something up high as here down to here. And in fact, the higher your background is, the lower this is going to be. So this is why this doing subtraction of a star doesn't work. What we really need to be focused on is the inverse. So this is like $T, everything below. This is 1 minus $T. So what we're trying to do is we're trying to keep this profile here and then manipulate the starless image to have this profile here. So, and I'll go back to PixInsight here in just a sec, but what you're left here is just the star, and then everything that's not a star is going to be represented in zeros, and we're going to take full advantage of that. Okay, so if I go back here, so instead of $T minus, I'm going to divide. So, but I'm going to use the inverse of starless. So instead of, I can say 1 minus, but if I use this little squiggly line sign here, that means inverted. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to put this in parentheses, and then I got to return that back from inverted image to a normal image. So what's going to happen is if I drag this over here, I'm going to have the stars, but if you look at the stars, they're in the same place, but with no background. Okay, so if I share the same view, oops, gosh dang it. So if I share the same view, you can see my brightness here, it's almost saturated, and those are the same values. So this is very, very important when it comes to using pixel math. So how do we actually reduce these stars and add them back to here? Well, another cool thing about PixInsight or pixel math. So yeah, you can control the stretching within pixel math itself. And the way I'm going to do it is a function called MTF. So I'm going to come over here and type in MTF. And I don't want any of you guys to be like afraid of this math that I'm using. I'm just giving you an example of what you can do. But these processes that I have here, this is going to handle everything for you. But to MTF, now we got to give it a stretch value. So we'll start off with an inverted value, 0.15 as an example, and then $T. $T is this image here. The reason why we want to control the stretch is, well, when you look at an image like this, we're taking very, very long exposures. So we want to bring out all this detail here. Now, subsequently, when you have long exposures and you stretch an image, you blow out your stars. So what my methods do is we're actually going to be using the stars of a lesser exposure, and we can do it all in pixel math. So for example, I'm going to just create this new image. So I'm going to use this value here, and I'm just going to drag this over. As you can see, this is actually a lower stretched version of this. And because it's lower stretched, if we look, let me drag this to the side, you can see that my star sizes are a lot smaller. So what we need to do is we actually need to transfer these stars over to this starless image. And the easiest way to do it is just math, okay? So I'm going to delete this, and I am going to show you my first star reduction method. So real fast, I'm going to bring you back to the Excel spreadsheet. So right here, this is our star, this is our starless. Now, if I actually take the reduced star value, which would be the MTF value of, say, this image here, I'm left with a reduced star. And to compare, so this is where we were, and this is the star that's smaller. But you can see the height, it's still up there. So for stars that are at saturation or just a little bit below, you're not going to lose a lot of that star detail. But anything lower, you're going to start seeing it shrink in. Okay, so this is before, this is after. Now what we need to do is we need to transfer this star back onto this starless image, and we're going to do this with math. So as you can see, this is what it would look like before. This is what it would look like after. And you can see that the star did shrink. All right, so here's method one. This is what I call the transfer method. And we're actually just going to be using simple math, which is just going to transfer the reduced stars from this image to this image. So how this works is, I've got the title here, and whenever you see something with like double slant or slant star, ending with a slant star, this is just a way that you can actually make notes without it affecting the pixel math process. Anything that's like in black, that's going to be your code. So I got a symbol here and a symbol here, and the symbols are back on this side, or you can see the symbols that I have here. But what this means is this is going to be my stretch value, and this is going to be the reference to my starless image. So again, if your starless image name is different, you need to enter it in here. That's why I say just keep it named starless, and just makes life so much easier. Down here it says drag the bottom arrow over to the image that requires star reduction, which if we do that, we can see that it reduced the stars. So anyways, the code. So I got a symbol here for F1. So F1 is my primary code. So what I'm doing is I'm actually going to take this image, but reduced in exposure, which is MTF, and I'm actually going to divide it by MTF of the starless image. So this is a reduced, so whatever I reduce here, I'm going to divide it by the reduced starless image, which is going to give me just my reduced stars. So when you come back to here, this is what my reduced star would look like. And again, this is the comparison before and after. So if I go back to PixInsight, now whenever I have my reduced star, now all I got to do is add it back to the original starless. And to do that, I'm going to multiply by the inverse of my starless image. And then all this max does is this is just like a little safety feature that I have in the code that says that in the event that my stars were to reduce, and say it was to reduce to a lower value than this, that we always take the max value of this. And this is like for halo prevention, but the way the code's written, you shouldn't have any issues with halos. So again, it's just a safety feature, doesn't hurt anything. So yeah, take this image reduced by dividing it by this image reduced, both are inverse, and multiplying it by the inverse of this, and it adds it back in. So you just drag it over and boom, that's how it works. So if you see the before and after, I'm just going to before, after, and even zoomed out before all these bright stars and after. Okay, so I'm going to turn it back to normal. And if I wanted to, so the thing about this pixel math is you can actually drag it multiple times, do your own iterations. Like for example, I can bring this over, then I can do it again, or I'll just control it here. I'll just drop this value even lower, and now I got an even more reduced stretch. So as you can see, now my stars are nice and small, and I can see more of my nebulosity just fine. So this is how the transfer method works, and it does a really good job, but just like every other thing that you do, there's always drawbacks, and I will show you that here in a minute. But that's method one. So the next method I want to show you is called the halo method. Everything here is just like the transfer method. Down here I'm using two different formulas. Now I know the formula looks crazy, but there's a reason why I'm actually doing this. And then what I'm doing is I'm taking the mean of formula 2, formula 3, and then when I create the star reducted image, I'm just using the max just to make sure that nothing will actually be less value than the starless image itself. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to blank that out so we don't run it. And then I'm just going to show you what F2 of the code looks like. All right. So if I just drag this over here, you can see that it's created these halos. So this is actually what we're going to be using to subtract. So what this is essentially a differential between the original image and an image of reduced exposure. And we could actually take this differential and subtract it from the original star and give us a reduced star image. So this is a little bit different from the transfer method, from the way it outputs the image. And I'll show you some examples here in a little bit, because I'm going to bring in some color images that have like high saturation, and I'm going to show you the pros and cons. But anyways, you can see here that we have our differential mask. So this part of the formula here where it says $T minus these. So just so you know, F2 and F3 are two different halo masks. So let me just delete this out of here, delete this out of here, undo, bring this over, and you can see the stars dropped in size. So before, after. Looks very similar to this method, but it is a little different. And again, and you can also just kind of keep going, even though I suggest not, you can do it like that and go back to the center, or you just go back here, reduce your value even lower, and there you go. So let me go back. But anyways, this is how the halo method works. So the next method I want to talk about is my third method, which I call the star method. So instead of actually taking a reduced exposure of stars and then putting them back on to, the starless image, or using a halo subtract like method 2 to decrease the star size, I actually wanted to try something different. Well, the star shape has a nice, parabolic or hyperbolic type curve. In fact, let's just go over to Excel. So if you're looking at like a yellow star, you'll have like you'll have red. This is a cross-sectional view. You'll have red, then green, then blue. Now, this shape right here, we can take advantage of it. So if we can use math and kind of dissolve the star based on its own star shape. So the advantage of this is not only do we shrink the stars, not only do we increase saturation in the stars, but we're also, in a sense, deconvoluting the star. So we saw a little bit of reduction in brightness, but the reduction here it's actually quite a bit. But the cool thing about it is based on the values of R, G, and B, look at how they're separated now. So they're actually separated even further. So the more separation that you get, the higher color contrast that you're going to get, i.e. Color saturation. So over here, again, this is just like the other one. This is again called the star method. So instead of actually reducing, again, the exposure by a value, I've actually done some creative stuff in math. So I've actually created a iteration. So we're just going to run one iteration of the code, and then I also have a mode. The mode, 1 being strong, 2 being moderate, 3 being soft. And basically these moderate and soft methods are blending back in with the original star image or a reduced star image using a different type of math. Again, I don't want to complicate things math-wise, but you can actually change these numbers here, and I'll show you some examples of it. So let me just zoom in here. Again, I actually don't need to share the view here. So we're going to run one iteration, and you can see the stars actually held in shape, but did shrink in size. So before, after, before, after. But again, what's nice about it is it held its shape. It actually got tighter and more defined. So if I back up and I run 2 iterations, you can see that it shrunk the stars even more, but they're still, you know, very tight. The smaller stars do get dimmer. So if you don't want that much of a hardness to your star reduction, you can either go back to reiteration 1, or we can change the blending mode. Let's just try 2. So we'll go back, oops. So you can see here, it still has a nice shape with a 2, but our smaller stars are in place. So I'm gonna copy this. I'm gonna change this back and put this back in a 1 mode. You'll see a difference, but it's not a big difference. But if you look, you know, these stars are a lot dimmer, these are a lot brighter. So I'm giving you flexibility to control how much of the star reduction you're doing to even the smaller stars. So I will call this like M3 from, I'm sorry, M2. So we'll compare. This is M1. Compare the view. And I'll go back. And then if I go to reiterations 3, again, it's just a type of blending. It's more of a HDR type blending that I'm doing. Bring this here. So mode 1, mode 2, mode 3. So before, after. So I actually like this method. I mean, it brings out some really good colors. So in fact, I want to go on to this next segment, which I'm going to cover the pros and cons to these different methods. So I'm just going to delete this, and in fact, I'm just going to rename this to, I don't know, something, because I'm not going to be using it anymore. And I'm going to lower this because that's a narrowband image. So what I've done is I've created another image. So what I've done is, here's the rosette. And this is the rosette in RGB. And what I've done, that, again, don't kill me over the processing. This is not a processing tutorial. I did this on purpose. But I brought out the saturation on these stars big time, okay? So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna drag this out. I'm gonna create my clone, and then I'm gonna do my StarNet 2. So here I have my starless image of the rosette and my starred image. And I'll just kind of share the same view. So I am going to go back to version 1. And this is where you'll see the difference. And there's going to be ways that you can fix this. And it's, all right, so here's just a regular star reduction that I'm going to do. So as you can see, it actually brought the star brightness down. So before, after. And that looks very natural, looks really good, smaller stars. But one thing that happens when you're using a transfer method, again, is you do lose saturation. Because when you're reducing a star exposure, you're actually bringing these lines in a lot closer. It would be more like this. You know, the distance between here and here, the more you bring the star reduction down, they get tighter and you lose saturation. So back over here, I'll go to 2. This one actually does a little bit better, method 2 on the halo. So you can see that the saturation actually holds really, really good. The stars are a lot smaller. They look natural. Now I'm going to show you method 3. So method 3, again, is going to not only increase the saturation, make the stars smaller, more deconvoluted in shape. So you can see, and this is only just one iteration. And even my small stars, I mean, the shapes are just really nice. So before, after. So let's run 2 iterations. Again, lots of color, before, after. Before, after. It's really nice. And if you did want to change the blend modes, again, to something more soft, say we want to go to 3 iterations, but we're going to have more of a soft effect. So you can see it holds a lot of the smaller stars in place while still shrinking down the big ones. So before, after. So it's really nice. So going back to method 1, okay, again, it does take some of the saturation away. So the computer that I'm running right now is actually running a 3080 video card, so it's very fast. I mean, you saw even when I was running these starless images here that, you know, it processed very fast. So one thing that you can do, and it works really well, is if you wanted to use version 1 or 2 as an experiment but make your workflow even faster, what you do is you extract the lightness. So instead of making a starless image, so I'm actually just going to delete this. Actually, let me just rename this to something. I'll just lower this, get it out the way. So what I did here is I extracted the lightness, right? And I'm just going to clone that, and I'm going to call it starless. So by taking the lightness, now if I do StarNet on it, this is going to work 3 times faster because it's only dealing with 1 channel. So here we go. Okay, so now I'm going to do the star reduction to here. So my names match here. So all I'm going to do is bring this over, and you can see that I reduced my stars here. Okay, and then next I am going to do my LRGB combination. So the reason why I'm doing this is I only did 1 channel versus 3, so it's a lot faster. The second reason why I did it like this is because your lightness, when you apply your new lightness back on here, this is actually going to dictate how this looks. So this is where we were at before. So if I use my new luminance, and there we go. So before, after. And then the stars, they're nice and colorful. So by doing it with the luminance, again, you're just doing it, you're just increasing your workflow speed by not lagging so much if you have a slower computer. So anyways, you got 3 methods here, and yeah, they work really well. Just play around with them. Let me know what you think. Method 3 works really good if you don't want to lose saturation, but you know, sometimes when you actually pull a lot of colors out of nebulosity, your stars can get oversaturated. So methods 1 and 2 will actually desaturate your stars some. So this is actually a good thing, but if you don't want that, you can run method 3, or if you wanted the saturation but you like these methods better, again, you can just extract the luminance from here and then create your starless image from that, run the star reduction on this, and then reapply your luminance, and boom. So yeah, it works really well. Anyhow, that's all I have. I'm actually hoping to show you guys more because I've got a lot of tricks with pixel math where you can take a narrowband image and add color stars. It's actually very complex. Some of the ways that guys are doing it online by like using the max method, it doesn't look natural is what I'm trying to say. But I'd like to share some math with you maybe in a couple of weeks of how you would actually transfer RGB stars to a narrowband image. But yeah, that's all I got on my side. So I hope this works out for you guys. Yeah, I have a lot more Pixel Mask stuff that I'd like to share with you guys in the future. So again, Luke, thanks for asking me about this, and I hope this helps your viewers.
Alright then guys, so that's just about all that we've got for you on this video now. I'd just like to wrap things up basically and say very genuinely thank you very much indeed to each and every one of you out there for watching, giving your support in the multitude of ways that you do give it, be it just watching the videos and leaving a like, or all the way to direct support via YouTube or Patreon and things like that. I appreciate every one of you, I really do. And also I'd like to leave a very special thank you, of course, to none other than Bill himself, without which we wouldn't have these fantastic tools that are made available to us today. So honestly and genuinely, thank you, Bill. I, for one, at the very least, really do appreciate all your hard work on this, mate. So I'd just like to leave things there, I guess, guys. So thank you very much indeed. If you've made it this far in the video, I really do appreciate your time. And that's about everything. So until next time, just look after yourselves and clear skies.